Well, thank you for yielding, and also thank you, Chairman Issa, for holding this important hearing that deals with government waste, particularly on the eve of the Congress considering expanding our national indebtedness, where it's nearly at $16.5 trillion, and we've got to look at every avenue of, and source of wasteful spending. This is not a small potatoes item. IT, we've spent in the last decade $600 billion, and the information we have today we gain primarily from a 2012 report from the GAO, which took the opportunity to review what was going on and highlighted the need to address potentially duplicative IT investments to avoid, again, wasteful spending. In fact, in the fiscal year that GAO looked at, 2011, they found that the federal government funded 622 separate human resources systems, 580 financial management systems, and 777 supply chain management systems. So what we've ended up with is various federal agencies as well as offices within the different agencies making separate and very costly investments in back office systems that often perform the same function. And all this duplication comes at some pretty significant cost. Unfortunately, that's been our approach, and what we should be doing is aggregating demand among the agencies and their different offices to get the best prices for various IT products and services, which we aren't properly doing. We also waste money investing in systems that fail to become fully functional. And the staff from the report, this GAO report, indicated that, for example, the National Archives and Records Administration, also under our committee's jurisdiction, poured, now listen to this, $375 million into the development of an electronic records archive system that's now been put to a halt, and we'll look further at that. Then we look at the Office of OPM, Office of Personnel Management, canceled its retirement systems modernization program after spending nearly $250 million on that program. We'll look at this. Despite these failed investments, OMB unfortunately recently abandoned the practice of including in the President's budget submission a summary of the extent of the risk represented by major federal IT investments. According to a report issued by GAO last fall, the President's budget submission from 2007 to 2009 included an overview of the investment performance over several budget years of IT projects in need of management attention. But this practice was abandoned, unfortunately, by the White House in its last 4 budget submissions. The unfortunate reality is that 16 years following the signing of the seminal Clinger-Cohen legislation that laid the very foundation for the federal government's acquisition and management of IT, and 10 years after the E-Government Act was passed, which established the Federal Chief Information Officers, the program would set program failure rates and cost overruns, which currently now plague us, and unfortunately, they account for an estimated 72 to 80% of large government IT programs, and that's an industry calculation. The first step in addressing any problem is determining who is responsible and holding people accountable. The Office of Management and Budget also needs to take responsibility for the lack of coordination and intelligent investment in IT being done at the agency level. OMB has to be willing to step up and take responsibility and say, the buck stops here. Finally, I'm also disappointed that the head of OMB's Office of Federal Procurement Policy, the federal government's chief acquisition individual and a person responsible, is not with us today, although he was invited to testify. but I'm glad we have with us today OMB's Financial Chief Information